Hey there, it's Laurie. I'm so happy you stopped by because today I'm sharing 5 new Christmas and snowman DIYs. I did use a bunch of Dollar Tree supplies, and with that, let's get busy. I'm making my Santa first, and I'm using a 9-inch plush from the Dollar Tree. I did see one that was a bit smaller, and you can use that one as well. I'm giving him a new beard, and I love to use the cotton mop heads. This came from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm using this one that I had left over from a past project, and I'm pulling out 10 strands. You can always remove the black top first, but mine pulled out pretty easily, so I just left it on. I have 10 in total, and I'm folding them in half to find my center point. Then snipping each of them to turn the 10 into 20. Now that they're cut, I'm attaching them together using a white chenille stem, or some people like to call them a pipe cleaner. If you don't happen to have a white one on hand, you can always paint one. I folded a strand in half to find the middle, and then ran a line of hot glue down the center. I placed the chenille stem in the hot glue, and then before it could cool, I used my finger protector and I folded over each of the 20 strands. After I folded each one over, I pressed it down so that it would attach to the chenille stem and the strand underneath. The glue is still hot, and now I'm pushing against both sides, making sure there are no empty spaces in Santa's beard. You can definitely use Santa's beard as is, but I always like a fuller beard, so I'm pulling apart all the individual strands. To attach the beard, I'm first placing some hot glue under Santa's nose. I centered his beard and left a small space under his nose. I added on more hot glue and attached both sides. Once the glue had cooled, I snipped off the excess chenille stems. To make his mustache, I'm using one more strand from the cotton mop. I folded it in half, cut it, and then I pulled one strand off of one of the pieces. I folded my cut piece in half and then tied that single strand around the center. I made sure my ends were even and then pulled apart the single strand, giving me 4 pieces. When I was done, I then trimmed off both ends. I added a dot of hot glue under Santa's nose and attached his mustache. Santa's beard definitely needs a trim, so I shaped it and shortened it. I'm giving Santa a larger hat, and I'm using one from the Dollar Tree. I used my scissors and I cut it in half. I turned the hat inside out, and to clean up those edges, I folded the ends over. I then used my glue gun and made a simple hem. The pom-pom on top of the hat, it's definitely too big, so using my scissors, I just kind of trimmed it up and made it smaller. I found the hat's placement on Santa's head, and then I used my glue gun to attach it. I'm using the faux fur from the large Santa hat, and I'm cutting it away from the red fabric. I have my strip of faux fur, and I'm placing Santa's head on it, wrapping it around, and then cutting it to size. I now have two pieces. There's a little bit of red fabric on each from where it was glued onto the hat. I'm using the piece that I cut for Santa, and to clean up the end, I'm folding it over and hot gluing it. I'm now adding hot glue to one side of the fabric and then folding the other side over to meet it. To attach it, I first added some hot glue onto Santa's hat. I placed down the center of the faux fur just below the red fabric. I added hot glue to both sides and then attached the two ends on the back. I'm making some boots for my Santa, and I'm using a set of Dollar Tree ornament booties. The fabric's already coming off, so I just kind of pulled at it and then used my scissors to remove it. To make the classic Santa boots, I'm spraying both of them with some black spray paint. I'm using the leftover piece of faux fur. I'm folding it in half and cutting it into two pieces. One side already has a hem, and now I'm adding some hot glue to the cut edge on both pieces and then folding it over to give that a finished edge as well. To attach them, I added some hot glue to the top edge of Santa's boots. Once it was completely attached around, I then cut off the excess faux fur. I placed on both of Santa's boots, then added some hot glue inside the back of each to help hold them in place. You can always leave his hat as is, but I'm attaching the little palm to the front. I'm giving my Santa a place to sit, and I'm using a couch. I found this in the toy department at the Dollar Tree. I want to cover the pink, so I'm using some dark green spray paint. I'm adding some hot glue to the back of Santa and then attaching him onto the couch. I'm having my Santa hold some Christmas presents. I was actually looking for some type of a basket, but I ended up finding this hat in my craft supplies. I think this will work just as well, so I cut it into a smaller shape. To attach it, I added some hot glue and placed it on Santa's lap. I'm using 4 of the assorted Dollar Tree Christmas gift boxes, and I'm hot gluing them into the basket. You can always leave Santa as is, but I'm adding on some kittens and puppies that I found at the Dollar Tree. They give you 4 of each. They were in the toy department, and they come in these cute window boxes, which I'm going to hang on to because I'm sure I can use them in a later project. I randomly added them on and around Santa and then hot glued them into place. Now that I'm done, I think this Santa and Friends is such a cute addition to anyone's Christmas decor. And if you know someone that loves animals as much as I do, I think this would make a super cute Christmas gift. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. To all my returning friends, you mean the world to me, and I can't wait to chat with everyone down below in the comments. To make the Christmas tree sign, I'm using one of the seasonal pillowcases from the Dollar Tree. It has a zipper on the bottom and it's really nice quality. I'm, however, going to cut that off along with the sides. I'm attaching mine to a 12 by 12 square wooden board, and this came from the Dollar Tree. I removed the hanger, and now using a glue stick, I'm applying a generous amount to one side. I centered the fabric on the wood, making sure that the top and the bottom design were even. I then used my hands to flatten out any of the bubbles. I then trimmed off a bit of the excess fabric on all four sides. I then added on some hot glue and attached the fabric to the back. Now that it's done, you can add on a hanger and display it as is. I'm going to add on a few accents. I'm adding on 6 stars from this foam pack, and I had picked mine up at Michael's. They give you 3 different sizes, and I'm using the smallest. You can paint them any color you'd like. I want to match the red lettering, so I'm painting mine with a burgundy acrylic paint. I'm adding one to the top of each tree using some E6000. I wanted to accent the trees just a little bit, so I'm using a pencil and I'm working my way around the outside edges. I also added a little bit of the pencil color to the trunks. I'm using 2 of the larger stars from the pack, and I'm painting them with some black acrylic paint. I added both to the top, once again using my E6000. I'm adding a hanger onto my sign, and I'm using 24 inches of nautical rope, and this came from the Dollar Tree. I'm making mine black, so I'm adding it into a Ziploc baggie, and then placing in some of the same black acrylic paint. I then start squishing it around, and I did add a little more black paint as I went along. You can always paint the rope, but pretty much what's left inside the baggie is what you would wash off your paintbrush. Now that it's dry, I'm attaching it to the back of my sign, once again using some E6000. This was so easy and inexpensive to make, and no one will ever know that it was actually a pillowcase. To make my Christmas snowman, I'm starting with 2 of the white microfiber dusters from the Dollar Tree. I used my bolt cutters and cut them off right above the handle. I'm first making sure that both of my ends are even. I'm measuring roughly 6 inches down from the top. I'm using a heavyweight cord and attaching the 2 pieces together. I'm adding a black children's hat from the Dollar Tree to the top of my snowman. It's just a bit too large, so I cuffed up the bottom edge. I'm placing it over the snowman's head and then hot gluing it into place. For my snowman's eyes, I'm digging into my button jar, but you can always use wooden circles. I have 2 black vintage buttons, each with a little crystal, and they'll work perfect for his eyes. I found the placement for each and then attached them with some hot glue. For his nose, I decided to use a wooden knob that I had on hand, and I painted it with some orange acrylic paint. I added on some hot glue and then attached it under the snowman's eyes. For his scarf, I'm using a pair of striped Christmas socks from the Dollar Tree. To give the end of the scarf a bit more of a finished edge, I'm first tucking in the toe and then hot gluing it closed. I'm attaching the 2 socks together, sliding one into the other and matching up the stripes. I then added on some hot glue to hold them together. The scarf is much too big as is, so I'm adding some hot glue down the center and folding the 2 sides together. Now that I'm done, I'm attaching it to the snowman using my glue gun. I went outside and snipped off a couple of branches for the snowman's arms, and I'm hot gluing one on each side. I'm adding on 3 green buttons that I found in my button jar. I first found their placement and then attached them with hot glue. To make the snowman's boots, I'm using a pair of the Dollar Tree ornament booties. Underneath is a plastic boot and I removed the covering on both of them. There's a tiny bit of glue residue, but it scratches right off. Using some black spray paint, I gave the pair a coat. I'm attaching them onto the snowman's feet by first adding some hot glue inside the boot. I then slid it up over each one. I'm actually coming back to the boots, but before I do, I'm using some of these Dollar Tree snowflake stickers as accents. Helping them stay in place, I'm using some hot glue, placing one on his scarf, and then I'm finding the placement of the snowflakes on his hat before I permanently attach them. Now, let's go back to the boots. The hot glue inside the boots has now cooled and set up. I want to cover the top part of the boots, so I'm turning the snowman over and snipping off some of the excess fluff on the back. There's also a bunch of excess fluff on the handles when we first removed both of them. Using my hot glue gun, I'm adding the extra snow to the front and the back of the snowman's boots. I'm making a broom for my snowman. For the handle, I went outside and found a 6-inch stick. I'm using some heavyweight jute and measuring one piece out at 12 inches. From there, I started to loop the jute about 25 times or so. You can make more or less loops, and that will determine the thickness of your broom. I'm using a clip to hold my jute in place while I cut a separate 20-inch piece. I'm folding my jute in half in about 1 inch from the top. I'm adding the string of jute and I'm tying it off. After making a couple of tight knots, I'm now wrapping the rest of the jute around the top of the broom. When I came to the end, I added some hot glue and attached the end of the jute. I now have my 2 pieces, and on the underside of the broom, I'm opening it up just a bit. I'm pushing the stick in through the center and out of the top. It's a pretty tight fit, but I am adding some hot glue on the underneath just to make sure it doesn't move out of place. I gave it a minute to set up, and now using my scissors, I'm cutting away all the loops and giving the broom a trim. I'm attaching it to the snowman's hand using some hot glue. I'm finishing up by making a simple bow out of some Dollar Tree Christmas ribbon and hot gluing it onto the broom. I added a little blush onto his cheeks, and with everything in place, this Christmas snowman is ready for the holidays. Getting started, I'm using one of the white hand soaps from the Dollar Tree. I used my hairdryer to remove the labels. There was a little bit of sticky residue, so I used some Fantastic and then washed it all off with Dawn dish soap. I'm adding on a snowman face, and I picked this pack of adhesive decals up on Temu. You can also find them on Amazon, but they were more expensive. I found the face that I liked, I cut it out, and now I'm adding it onto the hand soap. This is so easy and inexpensive to make, and not only would it make a great gift, but you can actually leave it out past the holidays and throughout the winter season. Once I had them all in place, I then gave that one final press down to make sure that everything was secure. I'm using some of the Dollar Tree Buffalo check ribbon, and I'm making a simple bow. Now that I'm done, I'm using my E6000 and attaching it to the front of the bottle. I think this is super cute and would make an awesome gift. I'm getting started using an LED white candle from the Dollar Tree. I chose a face from the assorted Snowman pack and I attached it onto the front of the candle. I'm making a hat for my snowman and I'm using one black sock out of a Dollar Tree 2-pack. I made sure the heel was in the back and then I cuffed the end of the sock over 2 times. I then slid it over the top of the candle. I'm making a palm on the top of the snowman's head. I'm gathering together a little bit of the fabric on top. Once again, I'm using some of the Dollar Tree buffalo check ribbon, wrapping it around and then making a simple bow. Be sure to only use an LED candle for this project, and you can always leave his hat on during the day and then remove it at night when you're using your candle. Here we are. We all made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much. And if you're still here with me, leave me a comment below along with a Santa or a snowman. And if you're new here, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I'll be sure to leave you a bunch of Christmas and winter DIYs at the end of this video, and you can also find them below in my description. Enjoy the holiday season. Have a safe and a happy day. And until next time, bye everybody!